I'm Walter Harrison. I'm a co-chair of Hartford Promise. I'm the retired president of the University of Hartford, and most importantly for this call, I'm an alumnus of Trinity College, class of 1968. And I'm here speaking to Tiana Starks, a Hartford Promise Scholar and a member of the Trinity College class of 2021. For those of you who aren't so sharp with academic years, that means she's in her senior year at Trinity College. Tiana, welcome. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you as well.
Of course, we know each other because Tiana is also a member of the Hartford Promise Board. She was one of the two initial scholar members of the board. So she's now in her second year on the board, and we've had a lot of time to get to know each other. So, Tiana, I wonder to start this conversation, if you might take yourself back to your high school years and tell us how you first heard about Hartford Promise and how you decided to become a Hartford Promise Scholar.
Yes, wow. It feels like it was so long ago, but it kind of wasn't. I remember meeting Mr. Richard Sugarman, I think 8th grade, and he came into our class and proposed what Hartford Promise was, and I was just, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna be a Hartford Promise Scholar, and I kept on like bragging about it, and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be me in a few years. And Mr. Sugarman and I connected very well. Like I started talking about everything I wanted to do in the community, and then I was able to actually learn the steps that it needed to be a Harvard Promise Scholar, and I was able to do that, and I just loved it. And then I was proposed the opportunity of being on the board. So I was excited about that because then I was able to not only be a scholar, but also be a board member.
What was it like in high school? Were the requirements of continuing as a Hartford Promise Scholar challenging, or did you sort of have that in your back pocket?
I kind of had it in my back pocket, especially with the attendance. I did not like missing school at all anyways. So that like attendance was not an issue. The grades were not an issue as well because I've always asked for help, especially in school when I found that like some things were challenging. So I kind of knew that I fit the requirements of being a Hartford Promise Scholar.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Global Communications Academy.
And were there other Hartford Promise Scholars in your class?
Yes, there were. There were a few of us.
Did you sort of bond together, or did you just sort of know they were Hartford Promise Scholars?
Yeah, so we bonded together. Global Communications Academy was a very small school. So everyone that was a Hartford Promise Scholar, we did our paperwork together. Like we all sat together and supported each other throughout that journey and process.
It's great. So you felt pretty well supported in high school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now it's coming time to graduate and you're trying to choose what colleges. How did you come to choose Trinity?
Whew. Um, so I didn't really want to go far. But I did apply to some schools that were far, like New York, um, Pennsylvania, and a few other places. But every time I went onto Trinity's campus, I felt a sense of belonging. Although I did feel like I wasn't in Hartford, I did feel like it was a small enough school for me to be able to succeed. So then I received a very generous scholarship, and that kind of confirmed for me too that, you know, this was the place for me because they acknowledged my gratitude and commitment to the college before even like fully applying, because I was going to every tour. I was coming to campus just to walk around. I would see students and I would say, hey, how does it feel being a Trinity student? I was very but I always asked questions and I always was on Trinity's campus.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about your transition to college. Did you live at Trinity your first year? And if so, what were you expecting? And was it like what you were expecting? What was the experience like?
Um, the transition was a very eventful transition, to say the least. I don't feel like I was academically prepared. But I did make sure that, I tapped into those different resources that were brought to me during Hartford Promise Day, as well as like preview weekend and Passport to Trinity. Living on campus, I thought that it was going to be like this, like very loud, like the way that it's shown in movies. That's kind of what I thought it was going to be like. And it kind of was, but there were points in times where I didn't feel like, it was the place for me because I was going through so much on campus, whether it was like being a student of color and not feeling like, this was the place for me for a portion of time, or like not even getting the grades that I felt like I deserved. But to say the least, I definitely think that it was what I expected. I didn't expect it to be easy. So yeah, that was that was my transition.
Way back in the Middle Ages when I went there, I certainly also had a tough transition, going from being one of the best students in my class to just being a
Yeah.
good student, not a great student.
Yeah.
So was it harder? Do you think it was harder being a student of color, or different being a student of color? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I definitely think it was harder, um, because I went to a predominantly Black and Latinx school. So I wasn't used to being at a PWI where your color of your skin says a lot about you before you even speak. So I kind of felt the need to own the room and like let it be known that I knew what I was talking about and knew like that I read, and that like, the things that I was saying were coming from a place of fact, like coming from a place of facts rather than opinions. So I feel like it was definitely harder for me. But when I got the grasp of understanding like how Trinity works and like how, like what it means to be a scholar here, I kind of like ran with it, and I started doing things that took me out of my comfort zone, such as like joining clubs, being a mentor for other students, and, having difficult conversations.
Yeah, you've been extremely involved with organizations on campus. So after that first little shock of being at Trinity, you certainly adapted, or they adapted to you, maybe. I don't know which it is. I know you worked for a while, maybe you still do, in the admissions office.
Yes. So I work for the Center for Student Success and Career Development, and that's in the same building as admissions. And in that building, I'm the lead service ambassador. So I sit at the front desk, and I greet people, which I'm kind of missing out on because we're not having inside tours anymore.
Yeah.
But during that, like in that role, I help all the other service ambassadors to make sure that they feel comfortable and feel like they're prepared to be able to speak about Trinity and their experiences amongst like visitors, staff, and faculty.
So that leads me to another set of questions. You spent more than 2.5 years at Trinity before the pandemic, and now for the past 6 or 8 months, you've been uh, spending time there during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Sense of how that's changed the experience of being in college these days?
Oh, um, so I love to work. I love to be outside. I love to like be able to interact with students, but the pandemic has actually stopped that a lot. It's very hard to be able to interact with students now. And as a senior, and as a mentor, it has made my job and responsibility harder to make sure that I'm like checking in on first year students as a whole. So it's been very difficult, and I can only imagine how the first years feel, um, because I feel like that first year is that year to set you up for success, and not being able to navigate Trinity without the pandemic, it has to be difficult. And I know for me as a senior, just thinking about the possibilities of not having a graduation, or like not being able to have those, interactions with my senior class has just kind of been very hard for me, because this is something that I've thought about and set myself up for since my freshman year. So it has been difficult, but I have very high hopes that it won't be like this forever. I hope that I'm able to see a graduation, because, we worked hard for it, and that's just something that I wish for.
What's like on campus now? I mean, you're in your room. It looks like you're in your room right now.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
do you? I guess most of the time. I mean, just tell me what you do in a typical day. Are you in your room all the time? Are you out? How's that work?
Yeah, so on a typical day, I have two classes in person and I have two classes that are virtual. So those are the times that I get out of my room to go to my classes and to eat. But there are like some like little things that we can do, such as like being outside with our friends. We just have to make sure we have our masks on. So although it's not something that's normal for us, it's something that we've been trying to make sure that we're maintaining. So we are getting out of our rooms. But typically I'm in this room the majority of the time, whether it's doing work or like having meetings or anything like that. It's everything's in this room.
Where do you live on
I live
campus?
in Crescent Street.
So you're in a townhouse,
Yes.
and how many students in your townhouse, and do you each have your own bedroom, or are there common spaces also, and how does that work?
Yeah, so I live in a house with 9 people. Each floor has their own bathroom. So that means that there are 4 bathrooms in here. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 4. And we all share one bathroom based off of what floor you're on.
Hmm.
Um, so that's been good, just being able to see people and having that company. But we do like we have to make sure that we are cleaning and like we have like all of our necessary cleaning supplies. So that's also something that we do as well together. Like we clean, and it's been really good living in this house actually.
Do you? How does it work though? I mean, when you're you have your own single bedroom,
Yeah.
and when you're in your bedroom, you can take your mask off.
Yeah.
If you go out to go to just, I don't want to be, if you go out to anywhere else, I was starting to say to go to the bathroom, but I don't want to get to all that. If you just go out into a common area, are you supposed to have your mask on then?
So not necessarily. So when we're kind of together as a unit. So we kind of share our COVID results with each other. If we're in our houses, we're not required to because we're technically roommates. But when we do leave our house, we have to put on our masks.
And at Trinity, you're tested twice a week. So when you say uh, uh, share your results, I mean, you all tell each other, well, I tested negative.
Yeah, we put it in our group chat.
Oh, you all do it virtually, you do it online. Well,
Yeah.
that's very cool. I should have asked you before about what you're majoring in and how you like that major.
Yeah, so I am majoring in sociology and my minor is in community action, and I absolutely love my major and minor. Um, I came into Trinity wanting to major in psychology, but I decided that that wasn't the major for me. I took Sociology 101, which is the introductory course to sociology, and I felt like a whole new world opened up for me because I wasn't able to learn that stuff in high school. I didn't learn about policies or like, any of the isms as much.
Right,
So
right.
it was important for me to really dive into that major because it also helped me with my minor, which is community action, because I was able to pinpoint some things that I already experienced, but I was able to connect it with the actual terms that they were, and that kind of helped me want to create change.
That's what you meant by the isms, right?
Yeah.
The technical terms for what they are. So, what about the future? What do you think? I know this is the big thing you don't ask seniors. What are you going to do next year? And then all of a sudden you get that panic look in your face. I don't want you to feel that way. But what are the general things you're thinking about you might do next?
So my dream, like I have two huge dreams. So let's take out like right out of college, but I eventually either want to be the mayor of Hartford or the superintendent for Hartford Public Schools. So that's very long term, but I do want to work with students who have incarcerated parents, that may need some assistance with, getting into college and being successful in high school. Um, Mainly because I've done a lot of research on the school to prison pipeline and zero tolerance policies, and I've actually experienced what those policies do to students of color in public schools. So that's what I really want to get into because that's where my heart is. And I've also known what it feels like to have a parent who is incarcerated. So I think that that is a good thing for me to do, kind of like paying it forward because I understand the resources and tools that students need to succeed.
So I had the experience, the privilege of meeting your mother.
Yes.
So I know about, you might want to talk a little bit about your family life during it, before and during the pandemic.
Yes. So my mother is my rock. Every time I talk about her, I get kind of emotional, but I'm gonna try not to. So before the pandemic, my mom has always been super supportive of everything that I do. And even during the pandemic, it kind of hit me very hard because I am such an outgoing person that loves people. So being told that I had to stay inside was definitely something that I couldn't deal with. And I was on campus for a portion of the time up until April. So when I got home, my mom like gave me like words of encouragement and like words of affirmation, like telling me that like, I was made to make change. And like she was very encouraging because for a point in time while I was home, I'm like, this is boring. Like I can't do work while I'm home. This is not for me. Um, but my mother did push me to make sure that I was working during the pandemic, whether it was planning out programs for the future or even like jotting down some ideas that I would speak to her about for, some ideas that I have for my community. My family is super close. My dad, he also texts me every morning to check up on me to make sure that I'm okay. So that support is there. My grandparents, they are always bragging about me, which is something that I love because they didn't have the opportunity to go to college and or even, receive some of the awards that I've had the privilege and honor of earning. So it just makes me feel good that my family is so supportive of everything that I do because I really do not know what I would do without them at all.
Well, when you meet your mother, when I met your mother, I certainly saw where you got the drive and your real sense of interpersonal skills. You come from a good genetic pool in that regard.
Thank you.
So the other thing that you've done that's groundbreaking, you've done a lot of groundbreaking things, but you're certainly a groundbreaker in being a member of the Hartford Promise Board. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that experience is like?
Yeah, definitely. When I first ever went into the board meeting, I was very nervous because I am the youngest
By
of
far.
the board. Of the board. So that was kind of intimidating. And I was just like, wait, no one's gonna listen to me. No one's gonna want to know what I have to say. But the minute that I walked into that room, I felt a sense of belonging. I felt like everyone wanted to hear what I had to say. And being on that board kind of provides that gap between like current college students and everyone else who went to college a long time ago. That's not an insult, but it kind of like helped bridge that gap and being able to say this is what I need as a student and this is what other students have told me. It kind of gives that push to get things done.
Yeah, and I can say as another board member that you really add to what we understand, and you're not shy about saying, well, here's how the students would react to this, or here's the best way to get to them.
Mhm.
So you've really made valuable contributions. And I should also mention that one of your fellow board members is Leslie Torres Rodriguez, and she's the current superintendent of schools. So I hope she doesn't feel uncomfortable learning that one of her successors is sitting at the same table with her.
I hope not either.
I thought maybe we'd conclude, but I could ask you to think about two things. If you had, we're recording this for the newsletter. If you had something to tell future students who are thinking about being a Hartford Promise Scholar, what would you tell them?
Wow. I would tell them to always ask questions and never, like ever, never, ever feel like you don't belong. Whether it is in a room, in a club, in a class, anywhere, because we are here to create change. And wherever you end up, it's because you belong there. You had the drive, you did the work, you had the confidence, and you are where you are, and that's where you're supposed to be.
That's great. And then what would you say to people who are thinking about donating to Hartford Promise so that people like you can benefit from college education?
I would say that the hard work doesn't go unnoticed, and it's important that we continue to fund students, especially Hartford Promise students, because it's such a pivotal time for us, where we don't know where we're gonna be in 10 years, 5 years, to say the least. So these donations are very crucial for us because it provides the necessary tools and resources so we can be successful in our colleges and our universities or wherever else we decide to go within the future, because Hartford Promise is what kind of keeps us together and keeps that family dynamic. So if we don't have the funding, then that family dynamic kind of, it doesn't leave us, but it kind of like makes it harder to support students on a financial end. But the support that I've received, whether it was an email congratulating me, a call checking in, a hi Tiana, has been so, I can't even put it in words because I might get emotional. But what Hartford Promise has done for me, I just hope that they are able to do that for other students to say.
That's terrific. I mean, you express yourself so well. I should say that you are the promise in Hartford Promise. And I think we all know the world is going to be a better place because Tiana Starks is in it. So thank you very much for joining us and for your wisdom and wise words. And good luck.
Thank you so much.